Captain Hyun Tae stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest spacecraft, the Taegukji, and watched the alien ships arrive. They were massive, each one at least 10 times larger than his vessel. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. He had spent 15 years in the Korean Space Force, worked his way up from a basic pilot to commanding Earth's first deep space exploration ship, and nothing had prepared him for this moment. The radio crackled to life. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Commander Yuna Kim from the bridge. "It's in perfect Korean, English, Mandarin, and about 50 other languages simultaneously." Tae nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Put it through." A voice filled the ship, cold and mechanical. "Humans of planet Earth, we are the Galactic Council. We have observed your species for the past 3 cycles. You are hereby granted protected status under Council Law 47B. Remain in your solar system. Do not attempt faster than light travel. Do not expand beyond your current boundaries. A representative will meet with your leaders in 72 hours. The transmission ended. Tae felt his jaw tighten. Protected status. It sounded nice, but he knew what it really meant. They were being told to stay in their cage. 72 hours later, Ambassador June Park sat in the newly constructed United Earth Council chamber in Geneva. Across from him sat Lord Vex Thor, the Council's representative. Vex Thor looked like a massive praying mantis, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see in every direction at once. His translator device hung around what Tae assumed was his neck. "Your species has been classified," Vex Thor said. His real voice, a series of clicks and chirps that the translator converted into flat, emotionless words. "You are pre-tier. This means you lack the advancement necessary to join galactic civilization." June leaned forward. He was a career diplomat, had negotiated treaties between nations for 20 years. "We've achieved faster-than-light communication. We've colonized Mars and the moons of Jupiter. We've..." "Primitive," Vex Thor interrupted. "Your technology is thousands of years behind Council standards. Your biology is fragile. Your lifespans are short. Your culture is violent and chaotic. The Council has decided that humanity requires protection." "Protection from what?" June asked. "From yourselves. From other species who might exploit you. From the harsh realities of a galaxy you cannot comprehend." Vex Thor's mandibles clicked together. "You should be grateful. Many species are exterminated when discovered. You are being preserved." Dr. Nari Kang, sitting beside June, spoke up. She was Earth's lead xenobiologist. Had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "May we see the Council's database on our species? We'd like to understand how you've assessed us." Vex Thor seemed amused by this. "Very well." The holographic display activated. Nari read through the assessment, her face growing darker with each line. The Council had been watching Earth for years, had analyzed everything from their biology to their culture. The conclusions were brutal, physically fragile, low resistance to environmental stress, mentally slow, processing speed 40% below Council average, technologically backwards, still using chemical propulsion, culturally unstable, 195 separate governmental bodies, constant conflicts, life expectancy, extremely short, military capacity, negligible, overall threat assessment, 0.03%. The last line made Tae, who was watching via video feed from his ship, clench his fists. 0.03%. They were considered less threatening than a minor asteroid. The meeting continued for hours. June tried every negotiating tactic he knew. He appealed to reason, to mutual benefit, to the possibility of cultural exchange. Vex Thor listened with what seemed like patience, then denied every request. "You may not leave your solar system. You may not develop certain technologies. You may not contact other species without Council permission. These terms are not negotiable. They are for your own protection." "And if we refuse?" June asked quietly. Vex Thor's eyes all focused on him at once. "Then you will be pacified. The Council has armadas that could sterilize your planet in hours. We prefer not to. We are civilized. But do not mistake our civility for weakness. The meeting ended. June returned to the human delegation in defeat. That night, he sent his report to every government on Earth. The message was clear. They had no choice but to accept. But Captain Tay had other ideas. Back on the Taeguki, he called a private meeting with his senior officers. Commander Yuna Kim, his tactical officer, was there. So was Engineer Minho Song, the genius who had designed half the ship's systems. Pilot Day 1, their best fighter pilot, leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. "You all heard the meeting," Tay said. "They think we're nothing." "We are nothing compared to them," Yuna said practically. "Did you see their ships? One of those could destroy our entire fleet." "Maybe," Tay admitted. "But I've been reading every piece of data we collected when they arrived. Running analysis on their ships, their technology, their tactics." Minho straightened up. And they're arrogant. They've been the dominant power for so long, they've forgotten what it means to fight someone desperate, someone who has nothing to lose. Tay pulled up a star map. They have outposts throughout this sector. Listening posts, mining operations, patrol routes. They're spread thin. "What are you suggesting?" Day asked, though his grin suggested he already knew. "I'm suggesting we keep our heads down. We smile and nod and accept their protected status. And then we learn everything we can about them. We study their technology. We watch their movements. We prepare." "For what?" Yuna asked. "For the day when we're ready to show them that humanity doesn't stay in cages." It was Nari who discovered the most interesting piece of information. Working late in her laboratory, analyzing the biological data the Council had collected on humans, she noticed something odd. The Council had classified humans as fragile, but their measurements showed something different. Human bone density was higher than most Council species. Human healing rates were faster. Human pain tolerance was exceptional. And humans could survive G-forces that would kill most of the species in the Council. She sent her findings to Tay with a simple message. "They measured our biology correctly, but they interpreted it wrong. We're not fragile. We're durable." Tay read her report 3 times, then he smiled. The Council thought Earth was weak. They had measured humanity by their own standards, by the standards of species who had lived in peace and comfort for thousands of years. They didn't understand what it meant to be a species that had clawed its way up from a harsh planet, that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They would learn. 6 months later, everything changed. The Krillian Empire, a warrior race from the far side of the galaxy, attacked a Council outpost, and Captain Hyun Tae saw his chance to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. The alarms woke Captain Tae at 0300 hours. He was dressed and on the bridge within 90 seconds, his heart pounding but his hands steady. Commander Yuna was already there, her face illuminated by the red emergency lighting. "Report," Tae said. "The Council outpost at Epsilon Station is under attack. Krillian, Empire forces, 3 heavy cruisers and at least 20 fighter craft." Yuna pulled up the tactical display. "The station's shields are failing. They're calling for help. Where's the Council response fleet?" Yuna's expression said everything. "They jumped away 10 minutes ago. Retreated to the inner systems." Tae stared at the display. Epsilon Station was only 6 light hours from Earth. It was a mining outpost, but it also housed civilian quarters, families. The data showed over 12,000 people on that station, most of them non-military. Workers, merchants, children from a dozen different species. "Are we receiving any transmissions from the station?" Tae asked. The communications officer, a young woman named Hana, nodded. "They're begging for evacuation. They have transport ships, but the Krillians are destroying anything that tries to leave." Tae watched the tactical display. The Krillians were methodical, efficient. They were taking their time, destroying the station piece by piece. It would take them another 6 hours to finish the job. 6 hours of terror for everyone trapped there. Plot a course to Epsilon Station, Tay said quietly. The bridge went silent. Yuna turned to face him. Sir, we're under council restrictions. We're not allowed to. They left those people to die, Tay interrupted. 12,000 civilians. The council abandoned them. We're one ship, Yuna said. The Krillians have 3 cruisers. Each one is twice our size. I know the odds. Commander. Tay met her eyes. I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to stay can take a shuttle back to Earth. But I'm going. No one moved toward the shuttle bay. Pilot Day 1 spoke from his station. Course plotted, Captain. We can be there in 40 minutes if we push the engines. Then push them. The Taeguki accelerated, her fusion engines burning bright against the darkness of space. In engineering, Minho worked frantically, rerouting power, overcharging systems, preparing weapons that had never been used in real combat. This is insane, he muttered to himself. But his hands never stopped moving. We're a science vessel with some guns strapped on. They're warships. Also, but he kept working because he knew Tay was right. Someone had to try. When they arrived at Epsilon Station, the scene was worse than the reports suggested. The station was burning. Atmosphere venting from a dozen breaches. Debris floated everywhere. Transport ships drifted dead in space, their hulls torn open by Krillian weapons. The Krillian cruisers noticed the Taeguki immediately. Their weapons locked on. Incoming transmission, Hana said. A Krillian appeared on screen. They looked like Earth's dinosaurs, Tay thought. If dinosaurs had survived and evolved intelligence. Scales, sharp teeth, cold eyes. Human vessel. You are in violation of council law. Depart immediately, or be destroyed. Tay stood up from his chair. This is Captain Hyun Tae, of the Earth ship Taegukji. Those are civilians on that station. Let them evacuate, and we'll leave. The Krillian laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. You give demands? Your ship is nothing. Your species is nothing. Leave now, or join them in death. Tay looked at Yuna. She nodded. They'd discussed this possibility during the flight over. Open a channel to the station, Tay said. All frequencies. When the channel opened, Tay spoke clearly. This is Captain Tay. We're here to help. Get everyone to the docking bays. We're getting you out. The Krillians opened fire. The first volley of plasma hit the Taeguki's shields, and they dropped to 60% instantly. The ship shook violently. Return fire, Tay ordered. Day. Evasive pattern beta. The Taeguki dove, spinning in a way that would have killed most species. The human crew felt the pressure, felt their organs strain. But they'd trained for this. Humans could handle 9 Gs or more before blacking out. Most council species couldn't handle more than 5. Day pushed the ship into a spiral that brought them under the first Krillian cruiser's firing arc. Minho fired their railguns, solid projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. The Krillians had energy shields designed to stop plasma and lasers. They weren't designed for kinetic impacts. The projectiles punched through their shields and tore into the hull. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to get their attention. They're confused, Yuna said, reading the tactical data. They don't understand why we're fighting for refugees. Then let's confuse them more, Tay said. Day. Take us between cruisers 2 and 3. It was a suicidal maneuver. The gap between the two ships was barely wide enough for the Taeguki. If both cruisers fired at once, there would be nowhere to dodge. Day grinned and pushed the engines. The Taeguchi shot forward, slipping between the two massive warships. Both Krillian ships fired, their weapons tearing through the space where the human ship had been a second before. But Day had already rolled the Taegukji vertical, using the momentum to arc up and over. The Krillian weapons hit each other. Both cruisers' shields flared and failed. Damage reports flooded their systems. Station reports, first transport is away, Hannah called out. They're loading as fast as they can. Buy them time, Tay said. For the next 20 minutes, the Taeguki danced. Day flew like he was born in space. using every trick he'd ever learned. The ship dodged and weaved, fired and retreated, drew the Krillians away from the station. Minho worked miracles in engineering. When the main guns overheated, he rerouted cooling systems. When the shields failed, he transferred power from life support. The ship was falling apart, but she kept fighting. The Krillians grew frustrated. They'd expected an easy victory. This human ship should have died in the first exchange. Instead, it was still here, still fighting, and their own ships were taking damage. Second transport away, Hana reported. Third is loading now. The Teguki shuddered as another plasma burst hit them. Shields were at 15%. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Captain, we can't take much more, Yuna said. How many transports left? 4 more. Then we hold. One of the Krillian cruisers changed tactics. Instead of trying to track the fast-moving Teguki, they fired a spread pattern, filling the space with plasma. There was nowhere to dodge. The impact threw Tay from his chair. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency systems. Shields down, someone shouted. Hull breach on the bridge deck. Tay pulled himself up, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Through the window, he could see the Krillian cruiser moving in for the kill. Minho, Tay said into his communicator. I need everything the engines can give. Everything. Captain, if I do that, we'll burn out the cores. We'll be dead in space. Do it. The Teguki surged forward on her last burst of power. Day aimed her directly at the Krillian cruiser's bridge. Sir? Day asked, understanding what Tay was planning. Ramming speed, Tay confirmed. The Krillians saw them coming and tried to turn, but their massive ship was too slow. The Teguki, all 5,000 tons of earth steel and fusion engines, slammed into the cruiser's command section. The impact nearly tore both ships apart. The Krillian cruiser spun out of control, its bridge shattered, systems failing. On the Teguki, Tay pulled himself up again. Half the bridge crew was unconscious. Sparks rained from broken systems. Status? He coughed. Yuna, her arm clearly broken, checked her console with her good hand. Engines dead. Weapons offline. Life support at 30%. The transports? Hana's voice was weak but clear. Last transport just jumped away. All civilians safe. Tay nodded and sat back down in his chair. Through the window, he could see the 2 remaining Krillian cruisers turning toward them. Without engines or weapons, the Teguki was helpless. Then something changed. The Krillian ships stopped. They sat there for a long moment, and Tay realized they were observing the wreckage, calculating losses. One human ship had damaged 3 cruisers and saved 12,000 lives. The Krillians jumped away. Tay stared at the empty space where they'd been and started laughing. It hurt his ribs, but he couldn't stop. They retreated, Yuna said in disbelief. We won. We survived, Tay corrected. And that's enough. The rescue ships arrived 6 hours later. By then, the story had already spread across the communication networks. 12,000 refugees, from a dozen different species, all telling the same story. The humans came when no one else would. The humans fought when retreat was the logical choice. The humans saved us. On Earth, Ambassador June received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. The words were cold and furious. Earth has violated protected status. Captain Hyun Tae is to be surrendered for trial. Compliance is mandatory. June read the message 3 times, then sent his response. No. General Salmon Che had seen war before. She'd commanded peacekeeping forces in 3 different conflicts, had negotiated ceasefires, had buried soldiers. But she'd never seen anything like this. The Galactic Council's blockade fleet sat at the edge of Earth's solar system like a wall of steel and fire. 50 ships, each one a fortress bristling with weapons. They weren't attacking yet, but the message was clear. Surrender, Captain Tae, or face annihilation. Salmon stood in the command center deep beneath Seoul, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth's pitiful defenses. 50 human ships, Most of them converted civilian vessels with weapons hastily attached, a few orbital defense platforms, some missiles. Against the Council's armada, it was nothing. "General, the Council is transmitting again," said one of her officers. Salmon nodded. "Put it through." Lord Vex's Thor's face appeared, his alien features impossible to read, but his tone leaving no doubt. "You have 24 hours to comply. Surrender the criminal Hyuntei. Accept increased restrictions on your species, or be pacified." "Pacified," Salmon repeated. "That's an interesting word for genocide." "The Council does not commit genocide," Vex Thor said. "We will disable your military capability and install a governing body to ensure compliance. Some casualties are inevitable in such operations." "How many casualties?" "Estimated 40 to 60% of your population." Salmon felt her blood turn cold. 4 billion people. Maybe 6 billion. Dead. For the crime of saving refugees. "You have your answer," she said quietly. "You'll get Captain Tay when you pry him from our cold, dead hands." She cut the transmission. Across the solar system, Captain Tay was being repaired along with his ship. The Taeguki sat in dry dock at the Martian shipyards, swarming with engineers. Tay himself sat in a medical bay, his ribs taped, arm in a sling. Dr. Nari Kang sat across from him, her tablet displaying data that made her eyes shine with excitement. "You need to see this," she said. "After the battle at Epsilon Station, I got access to more Council databases, medical records, biological assessments, combat analysis from 1,000 different species, and humans are terrifying." She pulled up a comparison chart. "Look at this. The average Council species can handle 4 to 5 Gs of acceleration before losing consciousness. Humans can handle 9 or more. The average Council species needs 30 to 40 days to heal from a broken bone. Humans need 10 to 15. The average Council species has a pain threshold that would be considered low by human standards." Tay frowned. "But the Council said we were fragile." "They were wrong. Or rather, they measured fragility by different standards." Nari leaned forward. "Most Council species evolved on peaceful worlds. They've had technology for thousands of years. They've lived in climate-controlled environments, with advanced medicine, with abundant resources. They've become soft. And humans? Humans evolved on a death world. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. We had to become tough just to survive. Our biology reflects that." She pulled up another chart. "And there's more. Human psychology. The Council doesn't understand it at all." She showed him combat analysis from the Epsilon Station battle. The Krillians had retreated not because the Taeguki had dealt critical damage, but because the human behavior had been incomprehensible. "They couldn't understand why you fought," Nari said. "The refugees weren't your species. You had no strategic interest. The logical choice was retreat. But you fought anyway. And you used tactics they'd never seen before. Ramming them wasn't exactly advanced strategy," Tay said dryly. "That's exactly the point. The Council has fought wars, but they're always calculated, measured. They use overwhelming force and accept surrender. They don't ram their ships into enemy vessels because the cost-benefit analysis doesn't support it." Nari smiled. "Humans don't think like that. We're pack animals. We protect our group even when it's not logical. We fight when we're supposed to run. We take risks that seem insane. The Council thinks that makes us stupid. The Council is about to learn the difference between stupid and desperate." In Earth orbit, engineer Minho Song was having the time of his life. Give a genius engineer unlimited resources and the mandate to create weapons to fight an impossible war, and he would perform miracles. "It's beautiful," he said, looking at his latest creation. Dr. Junho Lee, the physicist helping him, raised an eyebrow. "It's a railgun mounted on the moon. A railgun that can accelerate a projectile to 5% light speed," Minho corrected. "The Council shields are designed for energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. They don't expect solid projectiles moving this fast." "How many have you built?" 40, hidden in craters all over Luna." The Council's scans won't detect them until we power them up. Junho pulled up his own designs. And I've been working on something else. The Council ships use a specific frequency for their shield generators. I think I can create a disruption pulse. How effective? Maybe 30 seconds of shield downtime. But 30 seconds is a lot in a battle. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Hana Yoon was making discoveries of her own. She'd been assigned to analyze every piece of data Earth had collected on the Council. Looking for weaknesses, what she found was much more interesting. She burst into General Salmon's office without knocking. "General, you need to see this." Salmon looked up from her tactical planning. "This better be important." "It is." Hana pulled up encrypted files she'd decoded. The Council isn't what they claim to be. They're not a benevolent organization protecting lesser species. They're an empire. Worklana. She showed Salmon the evidence. Records of species that had advanced too quickly and been pacified. Technologies that had been suppressed. Resources that had been seized. The Council maintained their power by keeping everyone else weak. "There are 30 species in the Council," Hana said. "But there are over 200 species under their control. Most of them are kept at low technology levels. Protected status is just a pretty name for colonization. How many species know this? Some suspect. But the Council controls all communication. They suppress information. Anyone who speaks out is silenced." Salmon smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Not anymore. Hana, I want you to send this data to every species you can reach. Leak it. Broadcast it. Whatever it takes. General, that's an act of war?" The Council already declared war when they threatened to kill 6 billion humans. We might as well make it count. The data dump started that night. Hana worked with a team of Earth's best hackers, and they sent the suppressed information everywhere. Council communication networks, independent news services, underground resistance movements that the Council thought they'd destroyed. The effect was immediate. Species across the galaxy started asking questions. Why were they forbidden certain technologies? Why did the Council control all trade routes? Why had their neighbors been pacified? Ambassador Jun used the chaos to reach out to Council members who'd always seemed uncomfortable with the leadership. He found allies in unexpected places. Species who were tired of Vexthor's arrogance. Species who remembered when the Council had been different. "We're not asking you to fight with us," Jun said in a secret communication to the Valerian representative, a species that looked like floating jellyfish. "We're asking you to stand aside. Let humanity prove that the Council isn't invincible." The Valerian considered this. "And if you lose? Then we lose fighting for our freedom. But if we win, the galaxy changes." Back on Earth, the 24-hour deadline was approaching. General Salmon stood before the United Earth Council and laid out the situation in simple terms. "The Council fleet will attack in 6 hours. We have 50 ships to their 50. We have some advantages. We can handle higher G-forces, so our ships can outmaneuver theirs. Our biology makes us harder to kill, and we have weapons they won't expect. But make no mistake, the odds are against us." "What are our chances?" asked the president. "Honestly, maybe 20%. And that's if everything goes perfectly." The room was silent. "But here's what I know," Salmon continued. "The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years because no one has ever seriously challenged them. They've forgotten what it means to fight an enemy that refuses to lose. They think this will be easy. They're wrong. You're asking us to bet the future of humanity on a 20% chance," the president said. "No, sir. I'm telling you we have no choice. Surrender means slavery. Fighting means we might die free. I know which one I choose." The vote was unanimous. Captain Tay received his orders 3 hours before the battle. He was to command the defense fleet, 50 ships against the Council armada. He gathered his captains via video conference. Some were military. Some were civilians who'd volunteered. All of them knew the odds. "They think we'll break," Tay said. "They think we'll see their numbers and surrender. They're counting on us being rational. They think we'll see their numbers. They think we'll see their numbers. He smiled. Let's disappoint them. The Council fleet entered Earth's solar system exactly on schedule. Lord Vexthor sat in his command ship, confident. 50 human vessels were accelerating to meet them. It was almost sad. All ships, weapons free, he commanded. Disable their vessels. Minimize casualties. We are civilized. The battle began. And the Council learned that humanity had never been good at being civilized. The first surprise was the asteroid belt. General Salmon had spent 6 months turning it into the largest minefield in human history. Thousands of rocks, some natural, some with hidden explosives, all programmed to activate when Council ships came near. The Council fleet's shields handled the first wave, the second, the third. But each impact drained power, and there were thousands more rocks coming. The second surprise was the human ships. They didn't fight like the Council expected. They didn't form battle lines and exchange fire at safe distances. They swarmed, using their superior maneuverability to get inside the Council's firing solutions. And when they ran out of ammunition, they rammed. Vexus Thor watched in horror as a human destroyer, her hull breaching and atmosphere venting, turned and slammed into a Council cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. They're insane, his tactical officer whispered. The third surprise came from the moon. 40 railguns, hidden and silent, suddenly powered up and fired. Solid projectiles moving at 5% light speed punched through shields like they weren't there. 3 Council ships died before they could react. The battle raged for 6 hours. The human fleet was being torn apart, but they kept fighting. Every ship that died took a Council vessel with them. The survivors were damaged, systems failing, crews exhausted, and they didn't stop. Vex Thor finally understood. These humans would never surrender. They would fight until every last ship was destroyed, until every last human was dead. He'd thought this would be an easy pacification. Instead, it was becoming the bloodiest battle in Council history. All ships, he said quietly. Retreat. The retreat order confused everyone. On the bridge of what remained of the Taeguki, Captain Tae watched the Council ships pull back through smoke and sparks from failing systems. Are they leaving? Commander Yuna asked, her voice hoarse from breathing in fire suppression chemicals. No, Tae said, his instincts screaming. They're regrouping. Count their ships. The tactical display flickered to life. Of the 50 Council ships that had entered the system, 37 remained. The human fleet had been reduced to 12 operational vessels, and most of those were barely holding together. They still outnumber us 3-1, Yuna said. But they're bleeding, Pilot Day added from his station. His face was covered in blood from a head wound, but his hands were steady on the controls. We hurt them. They didn't expect that. On Earth, General Salmon watched the same tactical display from her command center. The underground facility shook as debris from the battle rained down on the planet. 3 orbital platforms had been destroyed. 5 more were damaged. The moon's railguns had fired their last shots. The barrels warped from overheating. Status of the fleet? She asked. Her tactical officer, a young man named Quan, pulled up the damage reports. The Taeguki has lost engines and main weapons. The Sol still has partial shields. The Busan is combat effective but low on ammunition. The rest are running on backup power or worse. Salmon nodded. They'd done better than expected. They destroyed 13 Council ships and damaged 20 more, but it wasn't enough. General, Hana called out from her station. We're receiving transmissions. Not from the Council. From other species. Show me. The communications filled with voices. Species that had been silent for years were suddenly speaking up. The Valerians, the Crosian Collective, the Remnant Alliance. They'd watched the battle and seen something they'd never seen before. Humans fighting the Council to a standstill. One message came from a species called the Taurians. They looked like bears that had evolved intelligence, covered in thick fur with small eyes that missed nothing. We've watched the Council suppress advancement for 200 years, the Taurian representative said. We've seen them crush rebellions. But we've never seen anyone fight like you. If you stand, we'll stand with you. How many ships can you send? Salman asked. None. The Council destroyed our fleet decades ago. But we can send you something better. Information. The data package arrived seconds later. Complete layouts of Council ship designs. Weakness in their shields. Backup systems. Command protocols. Everything the Taurians had learned during their own failed rebellion. They're giving us their secrets, Hannah breathed. More transmissions came in. The Crosians sent tactical analysis. The Valerians sent encrypted codes that could disrupt Council communications. A dozen other species sent what they could. Weapons designs, star charts, intelligence reports. None of them could fight openly. The Council would destroy them. But they could help humanity. On his command ship, Lord Vexthor read the same intelligence reports. His species didn't feel fear the way humans did, but he felt something close to it now. The galactic network was buzzing with chatter about the battle. Species were questioning, asking why the Council felt threatened by one planet, demanding answers about suppressed technologies and pacified civilizations. The information Hannah had leaked was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. This was supposed to be simple, Vexthor said to his second-in-command. Disable one primitive species. Instead, we're fighting a war on two fronts, military and information. We still have the advantage, his officer replied. 37 ships to their 12. We can win this. At what cost? We've already lost 13 vessels. If we lose more, other species will think we're weak. Rebellions will start. Then we need to end this quickly. Overwhelming force. No mercy. Vexthor considered this. The Council had rules about civilian casualties, but rules could be bent. If they destroyed Earth's military and demonstrated absolute power, it would send a message to the entire galaxy. Challenge us, and die. Prepare all weapons, he ordered. Target their remaining ships and planetary defenses. We finish this now. On the Taeguki, Dr. Nari Kang was working in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members. The ship had taken heavy damage, and they were down to emergency power. She'd just finished setting a broken arm when Captain Tay appeared in the doorway. How bad? He asked. We'll survive. Most of us. She wiped blood from her hands. The real question is what happens next. They're going to hit us with everything, Tay said. I can feel it. No more restraint. They want to make an example of us. Can we win? Tay looked out the small porthole at Earth, blue and beautiful against the black. Honestly, no. Not in a straight fight. But we don't have to win. We just have to make them pay for every meter. He activated his communicator. All ships, this is Tay. The Council is coming with everything they have. We're outgunned and outmatched. But remember what we're fighting for. Remember Epsilon Station. Remember every species that the Council has suppressed. We might not walk away from this, but the galaxy is watching. Let's show them what humans are made of. Across the fleet, damaged ships prepared for the final battle. Engineers worked miracles, diverting power from life support to weapons. Pilots ran simulations on maneuvers that should be impossible. Crews said quiet goodbyes to families back on Earth. The Council fleet accelerated, weapons charging. Their formation was perfect. A wall of firepower designed to obliterate everything in its path. And then, something unexpected happened. 3 ships jumped into the system. Not Council vessels. These were smaller, sleeker, painted with symbols Tay didn't recognize. Sir, we're being hailed, the communications officer said. A face appeared on screen. Reptilian, covered in scales, with sharp teeth and cold eyes. A Krillian. Human Tay, the Krillian commander said. I am Commander Vrix, of the Krillian Empire. We fought at Epsilon Station. I remember, Tay said carefully. The Krillians were the enemy then. Why were they here now? You fought with honor. You saved civilians when retreat was logical. You rammed our vessel when your weapons failed. Vrix's teeth showed in what might have been a smile. The Krillian Empire respects strength. We respect courage. The Council has neither. Are you here to fight? We're here to even the odds. 3 ships. Against the Council's 37. It was still hopeless. But Tay felt something lift in his chest. "Welcome to the war," he said. The Krillian ships took position alongside the human fleet. Their weapons were powerful, their shields strong. But more importantly, their presence sent a message. Humanity wasn't alone. More ships arrived. A Valerian science vessel, unarmed but broadcasting Council secrets on all frequencies. A Taurian transport carrying medical supplies. Even a few independent merchants who'd been saved by human ships during the Epsilon rescue. None of them were military vessels. None of them could turn the tide of battle. But they stood there anyway. Between Earth and the Council fleet. Vex Thor watched his tactical display in growing alarm. His simple pacification mission had become a galactic incident. If he attacked now, he'd be firing on multiple species. The political fallout would be enormous. "Sir, your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked in frustration. "We're here to enforce Council law. These ships are interfering. If we fire on them, we might start a war with the Krillian Empire. They're not part of the Council. We have no authority." "I know what we have," Vex Thor snapped. He'd come here, expecting an easy victory. Instead, humanity had turned this into a disaster. They'd exposed Council secrets. They'd fought beyond all reasonable expectations. And now they'd somehow gained allies. The galaxy was watching. Every decision he made now would be analyzed by 100 species looking for weaknesses. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said finally. Captain Tay's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted, injured, but his eyes were defiant. "I'm offering terms," Vex Thor said. "Cease hostilities. Accept monitoring but not occupation. No surrender of personnel. Your species remains sovereign within your system. And our right to travel the galaxy? Restricted, but not forbidden. Humans may travel with Council approval. It wasn't freedom. But it was better than annihilation. One more thing," Tay said. "The species you've suppressed. The ones you've kept at low technology levels. That ends. Or we release everything. Every secret. Every crime. And we keep fighting." Vex Thor wanted to refuse. But he looked at his tactical display and saw truth. The Council fleet was damaged. Their secrets were already spreading, and more importantly, if he destroyed Earth now, it would prove every accusation the humans had made. "That decision is above my authority," he said. "It must go before the full Council." Then take it to them. But know this." Tay leaned forward. "Humanity doesn't forget. We don't forgive. And we don't stay down. You can negotiate with us today, or fight us tomorrow, but you can't make us disappear." The transmission ended. Vex Thor sat in his command chair, feeling the weight of thousands of years of Council tradition crashing down. They'd made a mistake. They'd dismissed humanity as weak, as primitive, as irrelevant. They'd been wrong. "All ships," he said quietly. "Stand down. We're returning to Council space." On Earth, celebrations erupted. The Council fleet was leaving. Humanity had survived, but Captain Tay didn't celebrate. He stood on the bridge of his dying ship and watched the Council vessels jump away. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The galaxy had changed today. The Council's absolute authority had been challenged. Other species had seen it and would remember. "What happens now?" Commander Yuna asked. Tay smiled. Tired, but genuine. "Now, we rebuild. And we prepare. The Council will come back eventually. But next time, we'll be ready. And we won't be alone." 3 months after the battle, Ambassador June Park stood in what had once been the Council's Grand Assembly Hall. The massive chamber could hold representatives from all 30 Council member species, with space for observers from protected worlds. Today, it was packed, but things had changed. Lord Vex Thor no longer sat in the central throne. He stood in the defendants area, along with 7 other Council leaders who'd been charged with suppression of technological advancement and illegal pacification operations. The evidence Hana had leaked was impossible to deny. June watched from the human delegation area as the new Council president, a Valerian named Thresh, read the charges. The Valarians had always been one of the quieter council members, but they'd found their voice after the battle. For 2,000 years, the council has maintained peace, Thresh said, their translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. But we maintained it through oppression, through keeping other species weak and dependent. This ends today. The vote was swift. Vex Thor and his allies were removed from power. New rules were drafted. Species would no longer be classified as pre-tier and restricted. Technology sharing would be encouraged, not forbidden. Protected status was abolished. The galaxy was rewriting its laws, and humanity had forced them to do it. On Earth, Dr. Nari Kang walked through the new Galactic Studies Institute at Seoul National University. The building was filled with students from Earth and a dozen other worlds, all studying together. A year ago, this would have been impossible. She stopped to observe a class where a human professor was teaching Torian students about Earth biology, while a Crosian instructor explained their crystal-based computing systems to fascinated human engineers. "Strange, isn't it?" said a voice beside her. She turned to find Dr. Junho Lee, the physicist who'd helped develop the shield disruptors. "What's strange?" She turned. "What's strange? A year ago, we were pre-tier, primitive, not allowed to have contact with advanced species. Now we're teaching them and learning from them as equals." "We earned it," Nari said simply. "We fought for it," Junho corrected. "There's a difference." He was right. The cost had been high. 23,000 humans had died in the battle. Another 40,000 had been injured. Entire cities had been damaged when debris fell from orbit. The economic cost of building the defense fleet had pushed Earth into debt that would take decades to repay. But they'd proven something. That humanity couldn't be ignored, couldn't be dismissed, couldn't be kept in a cage. In the Martian shipyards, engineer Minho Song supervised the construction of Earth's new fleet. These weren't the hastily converted civilian ships they'd fought with before. These were purpose-built warships, incorporating both human ingenuity and technology shared by their new allies. "How many are we building?" asked his assistant, a young Taurian named Rusk, who'd come to learn human engineering techniques. 50 to start, Minho said. "Eventually, 200. That's a lot of ships for a species that claims to want peace." Minho smiled. "We do want peace. These ships are to make sure we can keep it." He showed Rusk the design specifications. The ships combined human durability with council technology. They could handle 12 Gs of acceleration, had shields and weapons that matched anything in the galaxy, and crews trained to fight with the ferocity that had shocked the council. "We learned something in that battle," Minho said. "The galaxy respects strength. We can be diplomatic. We can be friendly. But we need to be able to defend ourselves." Rusk studied the designs with professional interest. "The Taurians lost our fleet 200 years ago. The Council destroyed it when we tried to explore beyond our territory. We've been helpless ever since." "Not anymore. These ships? We're building them for anyone who wants to stand with us. The Council can't suppress everyone if we stand together." Across the solar system, life was returning to normal. Cities were rebuilding. The orbital defense platforms were being replaced with newer, stronger versions. Earth's economy was booming as trade opened with other species. But not everyone was celebrating. Captain Hyun-tae sat in a hearing room, facing a military tribunal. The battle had made him a hero to the public. But the military had questions about his actions at Epsilon Station. He'd violated council law, risked an international incident, and taken his ship into combat without proper authorization. General Saman Che sat as one of the tribunal judges. She looked at Tae with an expression he couldn't read. "Captain Tae," she said formally, "you're charged with insubordination, unauthorized use of military assets, and reckless endangerment of your crew. How do you plead?" "Guilty on all counts," Tae said without hesitation. The room murmured. His lawyer looked pained. "You understand these charges could end your career?" Saman asked. "Yes, General." "Then why did you do it?" Tae met her eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do. 12,000 people needed help, and no one else was coming. I could save them, or I could follow regulations. I chose to save them. Salmon nodded slowly. The tribunal has reviewed your case. We find you guilty of all charges. She paused. And we're promoting you to Admiral. Earth needs officers who understand that sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. Tay blinked in surprise. I don't understand. You showed the galaxy what humanity stands for, Salmon said. Not just our strength, but our values. We don't abandon people. We don't calculate costs when lives are at stake. That's worth more than following regulations. She stood and saluted him. The rest of the tribunal did the same. Welcome to the Admiralty, sir. 2 years after the battle, Commander Yuna Kim stood on the bridge of Earth's first deep space exploration vessel, the New Dawn. She was captain now, in charge of a mission that would have been impossible under the old Council rules. They were heading beyond the known galaxy, exploring territory that no one had mapped. Her crew was mixed. Humans and aliens working together. Her tactical officer was Krillian. Her chief engineer was Torian. Her science team included 3 humans, 2 Valerians, and a Crosian. Captain, we're approaching the jump point, her pilot announced. Take us through, Yuna ordered. The ship jumped, and a new system appeared before them. 3 planets, 2 of them potentially habitable. Resources. Possibilities. This is Captain Yuna Kim of the Earth vessel New Dawn, she said into the recorder. We've discovered a previously unmapped system, transmitting coordinates and initial scans. This was what humanity had fought for. Not just the right to defend themselves, but the right to explore, to grow, to reach for the stars without asking permission. Back on Earth, the now elderly pilot Day Wan taught at the Human Defense Academy. The academy had expanded rapidly, now training pilots not just from Earth but from 24 other species. His students sat in the lecture hall, watching footage from the Battle of Earth. Notice the maneuver at timestamp 42-17, Day said, pointing to where a human destroyer performed an impossible role. The pilot, Lieutenant Quan, pulled 11 Gs in that turn. It should have killed him. Why didn't it? Asked a Valerian student. Because humans are built different. We evolved on a harsh world. Our biology can take punishment that would kill most species. Day smiled. But more importantly, Quan knew that maneuver would save his ship and the cruiser behind him. He accepted the risk because that's what humans do. A Torian student raised a paw. Is that why the Council feared you? Your biology? No, Day said. They feared us because we refused to accept limits. They told us to stay in our system. We said no. They told us to surrender. We said no. They told us to accept our place. We said no. He looked around the classroom. The galaxy has species that are stronger than humans, faster, smarter. But we're the species that doesn't quit. The students took notes. Some of them were from species that had been suppressed by the Council. They were here to learn not just tactics, but the mindset that had changed the galaxy. Ambassador June Park, now serving as Earth's Minister of Galactic Affairs, addressed the new Galactic Council. The chamber looked the same, but everything was different. 3 years ago, humanity was classified as pre-tier, he said. We were told we needed protection, that we weren't ready for the galactic community. Today, I stand before you as an equal, not because we asked for equality, but because we demanded it. He looked around at the assembled representatives. Some of them had fought against Earth. Some had stood with them. All of them had learned. The old council maintained order through suppression. The new council must maintain it through cooperation. We propose the Galactic Development Initiative. Any species that wants to advance should have access to technology and knowledge. Not control, not domination, but partnership. The vote was close, but it passed. The galaxy would never be the same. 10 years after the battle, Admiral Hyun-tae stood on the observation deck of the space station that now orbited Earth. He was older, his hair gray, but his eyes were still sharp. Beside him stood Dr. Nari, also aged, but still vibrant. They watched ships come and go. Human vessels alongside Krillian cruisers, Taurian transports, Valerian science ships. The solar system had become a hub of activity. Do you ever regret it? Nari asked. All those people who died in the battle? Every day, Tay said quietly. But I look at this. He gestured to the bustling station. Human children learning alongside Taurian cubs, Krillian warriors training with human marines, species that were enemies becoming friends. This is what they died for. The Council still doesn't like us, Nari noted. The Council is learning to work with us. That's enough. Tay smiled. We proved that strength isn't just about weapons or technology. It's about will, about refusing to accept injustice, about standing up even when the odds are impossible. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the black. The planet that had been dismissed as weak, primitive, irrelevant. The planet that had changed the galaxy. A young officer approached, saluting. Admiral, the graduation ceremony is starting. Tay and Nari made their way to the main hall. It was filled with graduates from the Defense Academy. Humans and aliens who'd completed their training together. They would serve on ships throughout the galaxy, spreading the lessons Earth had taught. General Salmon, now retired but still sharp, gave the commencement address. You're graduating in a different galaxy than the one I grew up in, she said. A galaxy where species work together, where technology is shared, where suppression has been replaced by cooperation. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because a few brave people refused to accept the way things were. She looked directly at Tay. They showed the galaxy that humanity doesn't win because we're the strongest. We win because we refuse to lose. That's your legacy. That's what you carry forward. No matter where you serve, no matter what challenges you face, remember that determination beats strength. Unity beats isolation. And courage beats fear. The graduates stood and saluted. Humans, Taurians, Valarians, Crosians, even a few Krillians, all of them trained in Earth's tactics, all of them carrying forward the lesson that the galaxy had learned. Never underestimate humanity. That night, Tay sat in his quarters and recorded a message for the archives. Future generations would need to understand what had happened, why humanity had fought, what they'd won. We were told we were weak, he said to the camera. The Galactic Council looked at our technology and our biology and decided we didn't matter. They were wrong. Not because we were secretly strong, but because strength isn't what they thought it was. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Humanity survived ice ages. We survived plagues and wars and disasters. We reached for the stars even when we didn't have the technology. We saved refugees even when it was illogical. We fought impossible battles even when surrender made sense. That's what makes us human. Not our biology, not our technology. Our refusal to give up. He looked out at the stars. The galaxy is changing. The Council is changing. And humanity led that change by showing everyone that the old ways were wrong. That suppression doesn't create peace. That freedom matters more than safety. That every species deserves the chance to reach their potential. He smiled. They thought Earth was weak. They learned otherwise. And the galaxy is better for it. The message ended. The stars shone outside his window. And across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, species that had once been suppressed were now reaching for their own stars. Humanity had shown them the way. The galaxy would never forget.